Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today is the most important one-man review to me that I've ever done, and I hope it really spurs you all on to engage with this artist's work. I've talked about this artist and shown his work on the end of my 2023 Best of the Year video, but I want to make sure that I do a video specifically for Nicholas's work. Also, tomorrow and the 2 days afterwards, there will be a three-part interview with Nicholas. So this is the work of Nicholas Offerman. I found Nicholas's work at MoCA last year. This video is going up, which will probably be going up right before MoCA happens this year. When I went to MoCA in 2020, beginning of 23, I was in a lucky situation where, because I was on one of the panels, my job was paying for the trip, and I had already kind of mentally written that money off that I was paying for the trip before I found out that my job would pay for it. So I felt like I had about $2,000 to just go blow on comics, and I was hoping at MoCA to find the diamond in the rough, and I ran around and just bought anything that looked interesting to me. I was going up to tables like at Nicholas's, and like I probably just saw this cover, flipped through it, thought, oh, that looks like nice cartooning, good colors. This guy looks competent. Plus, he's got a lot of work, so obviously he's put a lot of work into it. And I did that at a number of tables, just grabbed whatever interests me. I know at Nicholas's table, I said, give me one of everything you've got, as long as, this doesn't have that in it, if there's collections and stuff. Just give me everything you've got to make sure I've got everything that you've made. And he kind of looked at me like I was crazy, and I said, no, really. He's like, okay, and I forget how much it cost. So I left MoCA with a suitcase full of books, and when I got home and was reading through all of them, I set Nicholas's work aside. Something about it, probably just because there was so much of it, and some of these more recent ones where his cartooning has really leveled up. I mean, all of the books are great cartooning all throughout, but something about these newer ones just really jumped out at me, and I thought, these look like they're going to be good. They look like they're going to be something special. I'm going to save them for last. And man, was my instinct right. So I finished reading everything that I bought at MoCA, and I sat down and started reading Nicholas's work. The first book that I read was The Unfortunates Undone. You can see it won a Mice Mini Awardee grant. This one was good. I enjoyed it, but it's about a guy who wanted to make superhero comics, and he's now, as a grown-up, kind of coming back to it. So it was one of those things where it's like, it was really well done, but it's within the genre of like comic creators making books about comic creators that it's not my favorite thing. And I thought, well, that can't be what all the rest of the work's about, so I'll read another one tomorrow. And the way I read these was, I had a stack of them like this, where they're basically just based on the size of the books. There's one other one in here, I'm not even seeing it, called Pizza Man. I'll get through it as I flip through it. But anyways, as I started to read these, I really got sucked in. I actually think I jumped ahead, and the next thing I read from Nicholas was Orange. Oh, here's the Pizza Man one. So I did read Pizza Man next, I believe, because it again looked small and like not as substantial as the other ones. Pizza Man really struck me as an interesting project. My first reaction to it was that it had a really interesting strategy in it. What it is this opening page explains that this is a movie franchise, kind of like Freddy Krueger or Jason or something like that, and it shows all of the characters in the franchise. And then the franchise has a comic strip that's been made about it, and these are all just mixed up like strips from the comic strips. And you'll see this one's from Pizza Man 5, this one's from Pizza Man 666, this is Pizza Man 3, and then you'll turn the page and you'll get another Pizza Man 3 and then a Pizza Man 2. And while I was reading this, I was like, this is strange. It all really still kind of paints a picture and holds together. but I almost wanted to like cut it up and have it sold in a box of like loose strips where I could really rearrange them and order them any way I wanted. So something about this, I thought this is like really clever. This is a really interesting like approach to comics as a modular medium where you could take any given piece and rearrange it and get a different picture of the whole that would be just as satisfying as any other picture. So I thought that's a cool thing. Then I went on to read Orange. I think, I was like, these are fun, but I do want to try and read something more substantial and really see what this author's about. So then I started reading Orange. The first one of Orange I have is I think a reprint where it's collecting the first two issues. And by the time I was done with this first collection of issues 1 and 2, I was like, yes, this is what I was hoping it was. These are really great comics, just about real people in real world situations, very well written, very highly literate, very well cartooned. One of the things I really like about Nicholas's work is he's willing to let pages jump around in their design. They have this very kind of poetic musical way of moving around the page, the composition. And so I started to get sucked in. And by the time I was done with Orange, issue 8 hadn't even come out yet. I just had issues 1 through 7. 8 come out very shortly after Mocha, and I bought it from Nicholas. By the time I was done reading this, I was already like texting Sean and being like, dude, you got to check this guy out. He's so good. This is such good stuff. We should do a video on this. You can also see the difference in the art between like the first issue of Orange, which was done quite early in Nicholas's career. This you can see here. This was first printed in 2014. So still really good cartooning and very, very competent storytelling all throughout. But by the time you get to the most recent issue, which was done in 2022, you get just really, really great cartooning that kind of synthesizes a lot of different artists. I think there's a lot of like how he handles color reminds me a lot of and composition and stuff reminds me a lot of Dave Mazzucchelli, which makes sense because in getting to know Nicholas, I now know that he's a graduate of SVA, which is part of why he's always at Mocha, is because that's a SVA related thing there. So by the time I was done with Orange, I thought, God, like this is a great graphic novel here. I hope someone picks this up and prints this. Like I can't wait to finish reading the end of it. And I was also, like, okay, now I've got like the rest of the weekend. I'm gonna read all because I got so much more. I'm gonna read more of this stuff. And I was like, what a thing this guy's been doing. How come I've never heard of this guy? He has so much work. Like this should be being talked about. I didn't even know yet what I was getting into and how amazing this body of work really is. Because what I didn't realize until I got through a few of these other books is that this is all one big interconnected world. And I don't mean it like in the MCU sense or something like that, where you have to watch all the movies to really know what's going on. What's really fantastic about what Nicholas has done here is that each one of these stories works like this book, Sprinkles. You could pick this up. It's a beautiful book, beautiful cartooning all throughout. This amazing, emotionally compelling, well-written, literate story. And it's a one and done. This could be all you'd ever read. Orange could be all you'd ever read. And you would have these really deep, rich character study stories. But as I started reading more, I was like, wait a second. Like, wasn't that character like that? Wasn't this guy that's the main character of this book the like friend of the girl in Sprinkles? And I'd like go back and look and be like, oh yeah. And then it'd be like, oh, and then like the character in this book who's like the friend of the main character is actually the main character, Phil Hutton, who's the main character of this book. And like his wife or girlfriend in this book is the young girl who's in this book. And then this is about her and her friends. That's Anne. Anne is Phil's wife. But when I read this book, I don't need to have read the other one to know it. And that's how everything that Nicholas has done works. And these are all things that he's been doing, self-published, really just selling them here and there at a few conventions. And he's been doing this consistently since 2011. So he now has over 2,000 pages of interrelated comics that all function perfectly well individually. Like, these are all called bottle caps. There's 4 volumes of bottle caps, but any one volume of bottle caps works on its own. And then within, like this one, which is his Onion Saga, there's 4 stories in here. And really, any one of these stories is a complete story on its own. So you could really print 4 books and just buy one of them, and it would be a perfectly complete story. And then you could read them in any order. Like, you could put these on your shelf in any order and pull them off your shelf in any order and go back to them and reread them one at a time or all together. And, like this, which is the last story in the book, and this is actually one of... this can kind of show off what a great formalist Nicholas is also. He's not just a great cartoonist and a writer, but someone who really understands the medium. This whole story functions on having a big spread, and it's the same scene over and over in the spread, but the way the panel goes across makes sure that you constantly read everything in order. And even as the panel arrangement changes, that still persists. And then he takes that, to a conversation at a park. He takes that to a conversation about buying a house. He takes it to a bar. He takes it back into the workplace. He's able to play that same trick. And I realized, oh my God, like that modularity that I thought was so clever in The Pizza Man, where I could scramble any of those strips around, actually applies to everything he's ever done and everything that he will do. It's obvious that this is, and now that I've talked to him, I know this is his life project. He's never going to quit. He's been doing this with like a few accolades on the Mice Award, but I've never heard anyone talk about this. And I think probably what's happening is people are going to the shows. Maybe they read Sprinkles and they saw that it got the Mice Mini Grant Award and he got some accolades, and people say, hey, this Nicholas Offerman's guy's good. Maybe I'll pick up something else by him. But depending on if you pick up Orange, like the characters between those don't necessarily cross over. So it can be very easy to miss what Nicholas is doing here because he's so good at making everything feel self-contained without needing the other stuff. I think it's been very easy for the comics journalists, the comics critics, the people walking around, the fan base and stuff to like say, yeah, there's that guy. He's like, I've seen his stuff. He's really good. I liked his one book, But I don't think, I'm not sure that people are talking about this in the right way. And in interviewing Nicholas, I got that same sense that he knows what he's doing, and he knows also the limitations on the audience of, like, at this point in time, it's hard for him to even sell someone everything because some of it's out of print, or to buy it would be very expensive to buy it all. Like, I got lucky. So I really want to sing Nicholas's praises. I also want to put it out there that Nicholas has a Patreon, and for $2 a month, you can get access to the entire 2,000 plus page world that he's built of these self-contained but interrelated stories. And it's really a beautiful thing. And his growth as a cartoonist is beautiful. I mean, you can see in these books, like, this is very, very great, perfect storytelling based cartooning, great use of color all throughout. He's starting to play more with like colorizing line and things in his more recent books, which I'll look at the most recent one, Katie Kohler, at the end of the video here. It's just this thing that I think deserves to be shouted from the rooftops, and a body of work that deserves to get much more press than it does. I think this is something that will eventually, hopefully, someone can pick it up and put the marketing behind it to have like a Nick Offerman library. Like, I could see Fantagraphics publishing these similar to the way they do the Hernandez Brothers stuff, where it's like you could get it all like in chronological order in the way it came out, like they just did with the recollection of the facsimile editions of the first 50 issues of Los Bros. But these could also be contained in, like, here's the Katie Kohler graphic novel, here's Do Geese See God, here's Orange, here's I Believe in Ghosts. that's one of the things talking to Nicholas that he's also kind of interested about himself is like, how do you you could rearrange these in so many ways. So there's a bit of like a library science in it, you know, like could you do a collection of all the pages that are just like any page that this character shows up in? You could really rearrange his entire body of work modularly in many different ways. And even the Pizza Man book, which doesn't seem related, Pizza Man's actually a movie that happens within this fictional world that he's building. And he's built this strategy where he could really do any type of book he wants. He could do a horror book, he could do a superhero book, and it could just be a piece of fiction from within in the world that he's done. I've struggled with how to present this stuff because I don't want to do a issue by issue or series by series review. That would be so many videos. I don't want to do one big video where I go through it all because it would just be like an 8 hour long video. So what I've come to is to do what I'm doing now, which is to just sit here and show as much as I've got. A lot of these ones that are printed in black and white, this is just a cheap way of him getting it out, but it also exists in these like more colored versions like this. I believe in Ghosts has black and white sections intentionally and has colored sections. But the majority of his work also, if you get like the digital versions, exists in color. So things like these that you see in black and white as I'm flipping through them, there are these more elegant, beautiful colored versions of them that you can get digital. And this stuff goes all the way back to The Revenant, which is was his basically piece that he did at SVA for graduation. That's about Phil, the guy in the guy in the book about doing comic books. He's coming back to town, and people like don't remember him from high school. And then some of the characters that you get introduced to in here show up in other books, and the world just grows from there. So yeah, please go to Nicholas's Patreon. I'll put a little linky thing up here. I'll put it at the end of the video as well. And support Nicholas on Patreon. $1 a month will get you each page. He releases basically a page every couple of days. So he's even releasing his work in a modular fashion where you can read it one page at a time. He kind of works on 2 or 3 different books at once just to keep this interesting for himself. Nicholas works a full-time job, and he's been doing this at night. You know, he has a very tight schedule for himself. He has, you know, this is what I'm going to accomplish by the end of the year. He has 2 or 3 series cycling at any given time. You can read him a page at a time. When he's done with what he feels like is an issue, he will collect that one issue in a PDF, and you can download and read it as an issue. Or you can wait until, like, say, Katie Kohler here is a 5-issue series. All 5 issues are done now. Issues 4 and 5 will be available to buy at Mocha this year. So if you're at Mocha, please go find Nicholas's table and check it out. Maybe just pick up the whole run of Katie Kohler. This is his most recent one that he's finished, and you know, obviously being one of the more recent ones, it's one of the, you know, visually most sophisticated ones that he's put out yet. Real cool formalisms. I've read the PDFs. Really satisfying ending on this, as with all of his other works. So if you want like a dip into the Nicholas Offerman pool in a physical way, seeing him at Mocha or ordering from his website, the Katie Kohler stuff would be really good sense of who this artist is. He also, in the back of this, is running another story called Bob's Long Night that's not finished yet, that shows up in a couple of his books and I'm sure will be collected. So you can really follow him modularly, but if you get on the Patreon, you can see it a page at a time. You could see it an issue at a time. You could see it a whole project being finished at a time. He also has downloads that are basically, this is everything I made from 2011 to 2015. This is everything I made from 2016 to 2019. You know, there's many different ways to consume his work in the digital format, so you can dip into and appreciate this whole 2,000 plus and growing body of work without having to blow $1 million. But then you can also start picking up, as you have the money, picking up the you know, the actual pieces. I think my three, I don't know, they're all so good. I can't recommend favorites, but Sprinkles is a really good one to start with because it's very much like you can get the one thing. He has this extra little bit, 24 page that adds onto it. But Sprinkles is like a nice finished $25 book. This one's a less bombastic in the layouts than the other ones because it's all on a grid. But a really touching story here in Sprinkles. I think Do Geese See God is also a really good entry into Nicholas's work because, again, it's all in one book. It's not split up into three like the Katie Kollars, and it's a little bit more. I don't want to say action packed, but it's a little more. I don't know what the word. This one feels more like a pitch for a movie. This could be more successfully a movie where a guy goes to a friend's funeral and they wind up hijacking a bus and going on a police chase and meeting some hijinks ensue along the way. But also really touching story about friendship and family and love and all that kind of stuff. This one has him working in color more. Also has that like rhythmic page composition thing that I like so much. So I think this one would be a pretty good like one and done. I don't see a price on this one, but this would be like a one and done good entry into Nick's work. Or Katie Kohler, now that it's complete. This one has all of those elements of the color. You can see actually the Bob character here that's in the Bob's Long Night is a main character in Do Geese See God. So you get like actually the Bob character stories in these. But the Katie Kohler one's also just a really great story. It's got these elements, like I said, the kind of rhythmic layouts, the musical layouts, the color sections, the monochrome sections. It's basically got all of Nick's tricks in it. There's a lot of, fun formal stuff in Katie Kohler as well, but as in the other books. So I think this would be, if you're going to MoCA, this is the one that he will hopefully have complete runs of, and definitely go grab that. I could go on and on forever about Nicholas's work. Like I said, I've been talking to him since MoCA. There was a couple things that I realized I didn't have. Yeah, here we go. At the end of Katie Kohler number 2, Nicholas made for himself a timeline of all of his stories. So this is the first time this is the only time that I've seen that he has this in any of his books so far. And it was right at the end of my reading experience, which was great. So I was able to go through and like verify all what I have. And I reached out to Nicholas and said, hey, when I saw you at MoCA, you didn't have this, and this. And I was able to buy the other ones he didn't have. And then some of them that aren't in print, he gave me the PDFs for. So I think I've now read the entire body of work as the finished work stands. There's some new stuff that he started already since we did the interview that I haven't read yet, because I'm not going to read it a page at a time. I'll read it like an issue at a time. And so this is like a representative of like how he's considering the work. He also has, these are planned stories that haven't been done yet, and so he'll note that in there. He's got kind of like a lot of this library science symbols and colors that represent certain characters, which is really appealing to me as well. These timeline things for the characters in the stories. It's just a really rich, complete world of comics. And I beg of you to please go spread the word, get this stuff, read it, enjoy it. I will say now, this is going to be controversial, but I think this stuff is better than what the Hernandez brothers do on Love and Rockets. I think it's kind of the same approach that Gilbert takes, in a sense, where he's got this sprawling, evolving world. But Gilbert's stuff is so focused on the one family. I've always liked how he has this way that he can do like these movies that Fritz starred in. So Nicholas I don't think he's inspired by that, but it's kind of a similar approach, but expanded. And the other cool thing is, like, once I glommed onto what this was, as I'm reading, like, I'll see a character that I've never met before, and I'll want to know their backstory. And it starts to work like real life, where you'll meet people in the middle of their life, and then as you get to know them, you'll learn something about their childhood in another story. And then you'll see this character, and they'll have like a passing dialogue, and you'll be like, who's that? That's an interesting person. And like, oh man, when is Nick going to get to tell a story about that? And the Gilbert Hernandez, the Hernandez brothers is such like these tight little worlds that they stay confined to. I also think that Nicholas is a better writer than them. I think his writing is more potent and well observed of humanity in general, whereas with the Los Bros, I feel like it's very confined to a certain time and aesthetic and a certain particular little subset that they've represented really well. Nicholas's stuff feels like more sprawling, and like as it goes, you get the sense it's going to take in more and more parts of different cultures and different people. And he's just a fantastic writer. He's a fantastic cartoonist, and each project he gets better. I mean, Orange, I think it was a span of 10 years that he was working on that in between other projects, and the growth in that is phenomenal. This is just as good as comics get, in my opinion. This stuff fulfills the promise of comics as serious literature in the way that I think a lot of books that have tried to lay claim to that, in my mind, don't live up to. This lives up to that in my mind. So please, please, please go check this work out. Tell people about this work. Talk about this work. Spread the news about this work. It is insane to me that we have a cartoonist and a writer this good working on a project so formally fascinating in the way it's constructed, so emotionally potent, so emotionally relevant, and someone who has been doing this since 2011 without stopping and produced such a large, consistent, increasing in quality body of work, and someone who you can trust is going to keep going. This guy has not stopped yet, and he will not stop. If we can't support artists like this, then what the fuck are we doing as a medium? This should be on the top of everyone's best of reading lists, best of all times, I think. So please, 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 I can't say it enough. Go check out the work of Nicholas Offerman. I think part of the problem is he shares his name with the famous comedian. It's hard to find online. He doesn't have an Instagram profile, so I'm going to link his web shop, and I'm going to link his Patreon at the end of this video, also below this video. I'm putting links to all this stuff. $1 a month to get the almost daily updates of the new stuff. $2 a month, and you'll get access to the entire 2,000 plus page body of work, and it will continue to come out. And then, like I said, we're going to have, I did a 3-hour long interview with Nicholas, super insightful, amazing thoughts all the way through on cartooning, self-publishing, writing, how to construct a story, how to make better comics, how to deal with being a self-independent publisher. I've split that up into 3 parts, so those will be coming out over the next 3 days. So I hope you all enjoy Nicholas Offerman Week. I'm sorry for being so evangelical about this, but this is what I've been looking for all along, and I'm so excited that I found it. It's exactly what I was hoping I would stumble across at MoCA, and I hope you all get to enjoy it too. So thanks for listening to me. If fuse enthusiastically about this, and please join us for the interviews, because they're awesome content as well.
Make sure to like, smash that subscribe button, and ring that bell.